Well, welcome everybody. It's April 1st, Friday at 5, and today we are going to hear from Melanie Murphy. We're gonna talk about getting a robust
Polishing portfolios.
online presence, right? And generally we talk about this for someone who is a job seeker. We have a successful job seeker, somebody with real results and a number of online portfolios that will polish. Yours are already polished. I guess we need to
Yeah,
ours out.
well, you'll see. I got samples.
So we'd like to welcome Melanie, one of the faithful in the instructional design and learning. And Marilee, your camera's still on. Did you want to say a few words? What?
Nope. She's done.
I'm gonna do the same. Melanie, take it away.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for being here, everybody, and I hope you get a lot out of this presentation. I did pre-record it because I was just more comfortable doing it that way, so I will launch right in. I do say in there, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask questions or put questions in the chat. I will be watching as the presentation is going, so here we go. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here to see my presentation about creating and perfecting portfolios. This is pre-recorded, but feel free to ask questions as we go along. I can pause this video and still keep my place. This afternoon, we will learn a little bit about me and my background, what is a portfolio, why you need one, and how to make one. Some sites where you can house your portfolio, some tips to help you polish and refine, and I'll give you some links that you'll be able to reference later. Who is the voice behind the presentation? I am Melanie Murphy, a certified professional technical communicator. I've been working on a freelance basis for 20 years, creating Marcom and TechCom documentation for my clients. Over the years, I built a diverse and robust portfolio, and later I will discuss why and how I defined my lane in my recent job search. During my job search, I took Leah Gurin's TechCom Fundamentals Bootcamp, and one of the final assignments was building your portfolio. I strongly recommend that class, and I will share highlights of what I learned about building portfolios in that class, as well as other tips and tricks I have picked up along the way. An online portfolio is the ideal place to showcase your best work. It's a professional, sophisticated, and living document that you can update as you gain skills. Using a content management system like WordPress also gives you an additional skill to add to your resume. Hiring teams review hundreds of applications. A well-organized, clean portfolio will help you stand out from the crowd. Once you land a job, you can also use your portfolio to introduce yourself to your new team or to other professionals. Get started by collecting your samples. 3 should be plenty to start. If you need to create more samples, consider volunteering, using class assignments, or finding documents online that you can rework. Have you built furniture recently and found the instructions lacking? You just did usability testing on that document. Rewrite that procedure and add it to your portfolio. Be sure to give proper credit and explain where it's from and why you did it. I'll give you some examples in the next section. Choose a place to house your site. I have used WordPress and Wix, which have free options. Their user interface is easy, and you have several templates to choose from. Building a single page should take about an hour or so. Canva is another free option, but I don't have personal experience with that. Your portfolio aims to get interviews and show your experience, and your audience is hiring managers and recruiters. If you get your foot in the door and they want to see more, be ready to show them more, but you don't have to show it all up front. This is just a small sample of your work. It's like an appetizer, and the main course will come later. Know your audience. Readers are raters, and in a hurry. They want to scan your page and find what they want quickly. Peter Gustafson is a technical writer who consults with companies about their API documentation. He recently wrote a blog article about creating portfolios. He found that his portfolio averaged 36 seconds per visit. He has over 40 samples on his site, and we will look at it in a little bit, but it shows that your viewers are in a hurry. They want to find what they're looking for and move on. Stay in your lane. Decide what position you're looking for and stick with it. Simplify and be consistent in your search. You'll answer interview questions better, and your samples will fit what the hiring managers are looking for. I began seriously looking for a full-time job in early 2021. When I started, I didn't have my dream position in mind. I was applying to technical writing, digital marketing, copywriting, editing, graphic design, and any other position that seemed interesting and matched my skills. I have an online portfolio full of samples and 2 resumes, one for TechCom and one for Marcom. I found it very hard to keep track of which resume and portfolio I sent, and when I interviewed, it took extra time for me to shift lanes and focus my thoughts on experience in their area. In early 2023, I took the STC certification prep course and rediscovered my love of TechCom. I finished the course, passed the test, received my certification, and found my lane. I started getting more active in the STC, surrounding myself with like-minded people, talking to everyone I know about my journey, taking Leah's fundamentals class and other classes through the STC, polishing my portfolio, and only applying to TechCom jobs. In March 2024, that work paid off, and I started working with Argonne National Lab as a writer and editor in their writing center. On your portfolio page, arrange your samples in some way. I have mine by date with the most recent on top. You might choose to do that or group it by similar projects. If you have a lot of projects, use headers to break them into sections. I suggest starting a new folder, perhaps on your desktop or in your documents folder, to hold all the elements that you're going to create so you can find them all in one place when you're ready to build your site. Write your introduction in your favorite word processor so you can copy and paste it into your site builder. For the samples, save them as PDFs and drop them into your folder. Use items from volunteer work, schoolwork, gig work, or find something in the public domain you can analyze and redesign. Perhaps you recently read something online that needed improvement. Fix it and add it with a before and after to your portfolio. This could be an editing sample, a redesign for clarity, or something else. Be sure to explain the work you did and why. Research the job listings that appeal to you. What kind of work are they looking for? Have you done that? Can you find something similar to create and add to your portfolio? When I was in the early stages of interviewing at Argonne, I didn't have samples of science writing. I was, however, taking an STC class, and one of the assignments involved usability testing. Conveniently, one of the choices was a scientific document. I did the assignment and sent a before and after sample to the hiring team. They were excited to see an additional sample that showcased my work in their specific area. If you're branching out into a new genre, find ways to gain experience in that field. Add these new samples to your folder. On the slides that follow, I'll show examples from my 2 portfolios. One of my portfolio documents on my TechCom portfolio is from a class assignment, and the others are paid work I redacted because the information was proprietary. In addition to looking at these portfolios and analyzing them with me, research other portfolios, noting what you like and what you think a recruiter or hiring team would like. As you meet other professionals in the field, ask if they have a portfolio and if you can look at it for research. Are you coming to Summit? That's an excellent place for that type of research, and I saw that they will have another session about portfolios there. Pick out your favorite elements from all this research and apply them to your own portfolio. Now let's take a look at my TechCom portfolio. As you can see, it starts out with my name very prominently right up front, a picture, a little description about me, and just a few skills that set me apart. And then we get right into the writing samples. For the samples, I have a description about what the project was, who the client was, the date, and then a link to go to the sample. And then the viewer can look at the sample and then move on to something else. If they want to see my website copy, there's a little description of what I did and another sample. This is one of the redacted samples. So they can still get a very good idea of the work I did, how I organized everything for, in this case, to put on a website. They don't need to see that little bit of information that I took out, and it doesn't affect the sample, but it keeps my client's privacy. Software documentation is the same kind of thing. That's another redacted sample, and you can see on here too, my clients prefer not to have their name out there. So I wrote a general description of the type of work they do rather than to name the company. And then I have just a simple link, so it's a nice clean page that's not distracting. And then they can see this is more of a step-by-step procedure kind of document. Again, it's redacted, but that information doesn't interfere with them getting an idea of the work that I did. Back to the site, as they scroll down the one page, they get to my contact information, and they can fill out this form to get in touch. They can click on my email. They've got my cell phone number there. Because this is a free WordPress site, WordPress does have that little ad down at the bottom, but it's nice and subtle. And then at the top, I have, this is still, everything's in one page, but I have jumps that will take a person, if a viewer lands here, right at the top of the home page, they can click on any one of these and go straight to the writing samples or straight to the contact. So if a hiring manager says, oh, I just want to contact her, I've already seen this once before, they can just click on contact and go right to that section. So that is my TechCom portfolio. My marketing portfolio is one that I would like to do a little work on. It's organized differently, and one of the first things I want to do, I created the image, the welcome sign, and it's repeated on the other pages, and it's a little large. I would like to reduce the size of that, but still keep it in there. I also, this is on several pages, and there's a lot of clicking that a user has to do, and I would like to minimize the number of clicks. But as you can see, I've got my name prominently right up front, description, a little bit about me, and then I have the links there on the left, and they can go right to my portfolio, where I have, these are jumps again down to the lower parts of the page, where they can jump right to email marketing, graphic design work, technical writing, etc. But I have my samples pasted right in on the page. I think this would be a cleaner look if I had the type of work that I did, a description about what I did, for who, the date, and then a link to all of these samples rather than having it all cluttered up on the page. I give a lot of information here, and it would be hard for a viewer to read through here and quickly find what they need. These towards the bottom of the page, the technical writing section is a little bit better, but these descriptions are a little long. I could make them a little more brief and put in links to the projects. A lot of these have links, but then I'm back to pasting them right in there. And then I have a nice jump back to the top of the page after each section. So users can just jump right back up here and go to a different section. But then if they want to contact me or look at testimonials from my clients, they have to click yet another time. And it would be nicer if it were all in one page. They could just scroll down and get what they need. So now let's look at Peter Gustafson portfolio. His is yet a different example of another way to organize things. Now, his site is, he has a different focus for his audience. He is marketing to companies that are looking for freelancers rather than recruiters and hiring managers. So for him, it's very important to put the names of the companies out there because, for example, if you're a game company and you're looking for somebody to write your API documentation, it might be nice to come here and see, oh, he's worked for Epic Games. They're a very similar company to us. And then I just want to look at those samples. And so there they are right up front, and having those logos and having it nicely spaced is a nice way to do it so that people can come in here and find just what they need and move on. And then he's got a nice list of just links to all of his samples, and it's not all cluttered up with squares of images of the same kind of thing. He does all API documentation, so all of his samples probably look very similar, but here is his Stripe sample of the code work that he did on that. And as you scroll down the page, you just get to more and more samples. If you were looking for a certain company, you could just scroll right down and find it. And then up towards the top of his page, he has the 4 different pages to his site. His about page, that's where you can learn a little bit more about him. His contact information, click again and you can get to his contact information, back to his portfolio, and other tips for people who are writing API documentation. Now that you've chosen where to build your site and gathered your content and you developed a plan, you're ready to start building your site. First, before you start, take a nice headshot. A few photography tips, just a couple little things. The lighting will be best if you can take the picture outside on a cloudy, kind of overcast day. It will be a nice soft light for your picture. Alternatively, if you're going to take it indoors, use a well-lit area with an uncluttered wall behind you. And try different poses. Don't just take it straight on like it's a mug shot. Just like with the design of your site, you want to minimize distraction. You can also use this picture on LinkedIn or other social media sites. Write your introduction, keeping it short and to the point. Highlight a few ways you stand out from the competition. Make everything consistent from the typeface you use to the alignment of your indents. Decide how you want to lay out and explain your samples. Choose one layout and stick with it. Write a heading, a short paragraph describing the work you did, and include a link to the sample. Don't show all your cards up front. If they visit your site and want to see a specific sample, don't clutter up your page with distractions. Make your best first draft and walk away. It's best if you can let it sit and percolate overnight. Take the time to do something else and get your brain thinking about something else. When you return, you'll have a fresh set of eyes on your page, and there might be little errors that jump out at you. After you've made your initial edits and rewrites, send the document to a trusted friend. A second opinion is always welcome. And then ask yourself some key questions. Can a recruiter evaluate this in 3 minutes or less? Would a hiring manager understand your skills from this? And if I came here looking for a specific sample, would I find it within about 5 seconds? Then, once you have your site built, plan to update and switch out your samples about once a month. If you're in an interviewing cycle, you might want to leave it as is, but at least give it a read. Make selective replacements as you create more samples, but remember to keep it simple and give your viewers a small taste. I want to thank you for watching this presentation about polishing portfolios. I hope you gained valuable information and are ready to build your own. Before we go, I want to share a few links, and I will put them in the chat for you. If you're not a member of the STC, I encourage you to sign up. Surround yourself with industry professionals, and don't forget to join the IDL SIG too. Leia's Fundamentals class. I saw that there's another class that's going to be offered in June. If you are an STC member, I recommend attending the May Summit. It's a great chance to network and learn new things. Take a closer look at my two portfolios, my TechCom portfolio and my marketing portfolio. You can also contact me through those sites if you have questions later or if you'd like help with anything. And finally, I have a link to Peter's article and more valuable information about portfolios. So thank you for watching today. And now we will end. So there we go.
So that was great. I think it's time for a round of applause.
Thank you. So there is a question in the chat. Portfolios do not replace the 1 to 2 page resume that every employer always requests, correct? Yes, it's a backup to your resume. It's not a replacement for your resume. And how do you connect those? I would list on my resume, right up at the top with my email address and everything, I have links to my portfolio. And yes, I put the link right in the resume.
And that was successful with getting some traffic to your portfolio?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have statistics on that, but it was, yeah, I've had a lot of visitors.
Awesome.
Melanie, I have a question.
Sure, Sue.
You know, a lot of us do writing outside of TechCom. We, you know, publish essays, articles, some of us novels, books, contribute in other ways outside of that, you know, professional TechCom arena. Do you recommend that we keep those presences separate on the web? I've found sometimes that the reason I'm asking is that in some situations, they want to see that you can tell a good story as a tech communicator. And so that maybe fiction or essay writing, it would be good to showcase that.
Mm-hmm.
So how does this get handled?
Yeah, I would probably keep them separate, but put a reference to each one. So if you have your TechCom portfolio, have a small section in there about, you know, just kind of as an aside, I also do this other kind of writing. And if you're interested in that, then click here to see that portfolio, and then vice versa. And kind of cover both bases pretty easily. Tricia?
Yes, a question. I heard you say put things in a PDF and then link them to your site. If your samples are part of a different website that is public, would you recommend just linking over to that website or capture it and put it in a screenshot from your site so they don't leave your portfolio?
Right.
How would
You
you?
could put it in as just a link, but there is some danger in that because that website may go down or be
Change?
replaced, or, you know, in that case, I'd put the link in there and have that, but just do a print of the page and make that a PDF, and then save that in your folder so that if anything ever does happen to the site, you can very quickly go in there and replace that link and be covered.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess I like to cover all my bases
Yeah.
whenever I can. So Janelle has some other questions in the chat. She had the one about the portfolios and the resume, and then if you have skills in tech comm, document layout, graphic design, is it okay to put all those in the same portfolio, maybe with different pages or links? Maybe a screenshot and then an explanation under it, also where it's located, especially if that site provides more information. Okay. She was commenting about some of the things that I was talking about with Tricia. So, Janelle, can you unmute and we can talk about your questions, or? There you are. So going back to, if you have skills in all these different areas and a lot of diversity, you could put those all in one portfolio and just have them really well organized. So you have, you know, a nice heading for, this is my graphic design work, this is my tech comm work, and maybe with those jumps so that if a person is just there looking for your tech comm, they can go right to that without getting distracted by all the other noise.
Do you like, Melanie, this is Sue, for that example, do you prefer having like the page tags at the top that people could jump to, like this particular instruction design or graphic design related? Or do you like having like right on the first screen so they don't have to scroll down, like the quick link box that they can go to?
Yeah, I have seen it both ways, and I think it's really just a design preference when you're making your site. For me, you know, in my marketing portfolio, I had the little buttons up towards the top of the page that were the section headers, and they could jump down to those. And then there was another jump off to the side that would take them back to the top. So that's one approach, or you could do the separate pages for each category up at the top. But if you do send people down to the bottom of a really long page, I would definitely give them a way to get quickly back up to the top. Oh, Tapley had a good question. At the beginning of the presentation, I talked about having an appetizer, and this is not the main course. What would you consider the main course? The interview and chances where you can talk more about your skills and how you best fit in with the company and all those good things. That's your That's the meat of it, when they really get to meet you and match your personality to your samples, I think.
So I really liked what you said about finding which lane you're
Oh.
in and staying in your lane,
Mm-hmm.
because you had said that not only did that help you when you're making the portfolio, but it really helped you a lot in the interview,
Oh,
because you
yeah.
can sort of focus and really be able to address the felt need.
Yeah.
So,
And every interview, I had quite a few interviews once I started really focusing on TechCom. And every interview was kind of practice in the same types of questions.
mhm.
So, you know, it was always a lot of, tell me about a time when you worked with an SME. So I had my kind of standard answer that I would give. And so every time I gave it, it was practice for the next time. And then when it came up again, it was just more easily would roll off my tongue. Janelle also had another question in the chat about, has an employer ever told you after seeing your portfolio that helped them make the decision to hire you, or that kind of pushed you over? And yeah, Argonne did say they were very impressed with my portfolio, my samples. That did help move it on a little bit. The job that I was actually interviewing for with them, I did not get that job, but I was the silver medalist. And I, because they were so impressed with my portfolio, they asked me to be a consultant with them. So that's what I'm doing now. So
Nice.
Anne Marie, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. This has been very informative. I love your print behind you too, by the way.
Thanks. My typewriter.
Yeah. Let me look at my hand. Yeah, I thought it'd be easier just to ask the question. Now, you had mentioned that you update or swap out your samples. Was it every few months or every month? And so I guess my question with that is, sometimes they say like if a website has things that are after a certain age, that it looks like it's static and there's no, does that hold with portfolios, that it kind of has the same negative connotation, that you might have a really good sample, but I mean, after 6 months, say, is there a rule of thumb that maybe after 6 months you really do need to swap it out, or it's not that clear cut?
Well, that's going to come into play when you've got Google and some of the other search engines trying to search your site. And you probably really don't want them searching your site because there's a lot of personal information on there. So having it updated for those kind of analytics doesn't really apply. But I would go in there and check it about once a month. And you can just update you can have a footer on there with the date that says updated, such and such a date, so people know that it's fresh. But as soon as you put your samples up there, they're aging, and there's no stopping aging for any of us. So I would just, try to keep it fresh. And if you're in an interview cycle, you might want to leave things up there, and you wouldn't want to switch them out, because if they're looking for one particular thing, like I have that Keurig sample on there, and if the whole hiring team is talking about that, and oh, let's look at that sample again, well, you just took it down, and now they have no way to see it again. So if you're being very active, I wouldn't worry so much about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Melanie, aside from redacting company names and other identifying information, do you have any advice for using confidential samples, and did you have to ask permission?
I did ask permission because one of my clients in particular was very sensitive about their information, and they were kind of hesitant to let me put that up there. But once they saw that it was redacted, they were fine with that. I don't really have any any more advice about what to do other than redacting. You know, just ask permission, do your best to take out any identifying information, or if you really have to, you could rewrite it to kind of dance around even what they do.
Yeah, my company is very strict about things like that, so I could ask, but they might say no.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Oh, yeah, somebody else, Janelle pointed out that if you signed an NDA, you might not be able to provide them at all.
That's a
So,
good point. I may have done that
yeah,
years ago. I don't remember.
you might also be able to kind of spin it, take the same product, but replace the names. Like if it's a software document, like a chapter out of a software document, just make up a new name for one of the products. I think I did that in one of my samples, and I don't remember if I put it up on my portfolio or if it's just, I think I did it as one of my class projects. And I made up some name for the company. I made up a name for the product and changed anything else that would be any kind of identifier that it would be for that particular company.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Tricia said you can program your site, your website, to avoid search engines. There's code you can add, like no index, no follow. Yeah. There are also settings I know in WordPress that will limit the number of bots that can search your site. Jen says, I've had a client refuse to let me use what I created, so I replaced all the references with animals, turned into a funny version of Animal Farm, and then changed all the colors and photos. Worked like a charm. So that's another idea. Is there value in having a portfolio if you're not job searching? I think there is. I guess I'm kind of always on the search for, you know, whatever's out there. But I have also used it to just show other people, to have presentations like this, or talking to other professionals and just been like, oh, I've done something similar to that. It's up on my portfolio. You can take a look at it if you want to. So, you know, in a case like that, you might not be so worried about keeping it fresh and updated, but you can still have it out there. So another difficult question. Thank you, Sue. What would you recommend for government defense industry? None of those samples can be used at all. But maybe you can do something like Jen did, where she replaced everything with other kinds of references. Yeah, Jen did the replacing references with animals and then changed colors and photos, and take any of that out, and hopefully that'll work.
I'll ask another question. You'd mentioned using some samples of volunteer work that you would do.
Mm-hmm.
Would those be under your, like, maybe it's technical writing or design or something like that? Do you have to explain, I was volunteering at this point? And I'm just trying to get a picture of how you would add that.
Yeah. I don't think you really have to say I was a volunteer. You can just say, like, some of my samples were from a quilt guild that I'm involved with, and I do their newsletter. I do writing and editing and graphic design for them. So I would put all those samples in there as those kinds of things, and I would just say, I worked with this group to do this. how you get paid or not for that doesn't really matter.
True. You're
So, you know,
using
I
your
would, I mean,
skills.
you've done the work,
Mhm.
you know, you were a professional about it. So I would just address it like that and just not mention how, if or how you got paid for it.
And another question, sort of related, if you were a speaker often for like STC conferences and things like that, would that be something you would add to your portfolio, such as a list of your presentations, maybe PDFs of them, or?
Mm-hmm. I would. This will be going up on my portfolio.
There you go.
And I'll put up the presentation itself, so if people just want to look at the slides or follow the links, they can do that. And then I'll also have the video if they want to watch the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everything can go in there. If it's one of the skills you want to highlight, throw it in.
Very good. Thank you.
I mean, you need to collect that kind of thing privately anyway. And if it's postable and shareable, I like the thought that you guys would share your superpowers with me and then I can learn from you. And it's, I think, those of us that go through the exercise to get associate fellow and fellow, you know, we need to pull together a portfolio. We need to pull together all of the things that are, you know, some kind of deliverable that we can use to highlight our super skills. And I would love the idea of being able to see the other kinds of things that other people do. You know, we're generous in STC. We share a lot. We do lots of presentations, and going to have to, which it's time for a commercial. Melanie, we are having an IDL session at the summit in Minneapolis, and Melanie is going to be part of our panel, and she'll be talking about this very thing. So come and visit us when you get to the summit. Come and visit us, make plans. We're going to have prizes.
And fun, lots of fun. It'll be fun and interactive. There's more talk in the chat about volunteering too, and whether or not to mention that it's volunteer work. And a good point was made in there. I think it was Janelle. Volunteering can be very valuable too, because employers like employees who volunteer and give their time to other things. So I guess with everything, it's all a design decision, whether or not you want to include volunteer work and name it that, or just call them a client. Jen changed a financial services company to bed and bowl services in the pet industry. All the senior leadership were cats. The managers were turtles, and the dogs were the entry-level team members. It was hilarious. At the end of the day, it's about the process and the design, not the actual content.
But I love how Jen took the opportunity to show some creativity, and in addition, you know, her technical skills. So,
Trisha, go ahead. This is open discussion now.
Right. I was just clapping to Jen because that's cool.
Oh.
Just
Good
realized
job,
I was
Jen.
on mute.
Yeah, we'll have to see your portfolio sometime.
I have to say, I did a project a long time ago, and it had to be you get to build a learning and development team from the ground up. So to do that and to give it some structure, we created my team and I, there were 3 of us in the class together who were a group. We came up with a fake company, and we just, we riffed on it for an entire afternoon, which is hysterical. We had some wild ideas. So we ended up with the Bed and Bowl Pet Resort as the concept. And we just kind of went from there. And, when I was asked to produce a sample, I'm like, well, I really don't have anything because I've got all these, heinous NDA agreements that hide everything. It's
Mhm.
it's like, oh, wait a second, nobody owns that company or that name. And I did a little searching to make sure that there wasn't an actual bed and bowl pet resort. And I'm like, I'll just do that. And so that's like my go-to. I have all the graphics. There's no reason why I can't just reuse it and just, and the beautiful thing about it is, because I've used that same company in different ways, you can see, oh, she took it in this direction with this idea, and she had this other idea and took it in this other direction. So you can compare and contrast, what you're doing with it, which actually makes it a little bit easier, I think, for someone who's looking at what you can and where your skill set is, versus trying to compare, well, this is how she writes about Lotus Notes, and this is how she writes about, leadership training. It's hard to compare those two unless your content is truly the same.
Mhm.
So, plus it was more
Good
fun.
thoughts. Yep. Well, thanks
Well-
for sharing, Jen.
Yeah, we're about at the top of the hour, so we're gonna have a round of applause for Melanie and
Thank you.
invite everyone to join us in Minneapolis when they get to the summit. Make sure you come by and say hi, and we'll give you a prize. I'm going to stop the recording if I can find the button. There it is.